Talk to me about burnout. I saw you tweet about that or post about burnout the other day, about burnout being real. It's something that I have definitely felt in my career at one point. I actually remember when I was still in Toronto and doing a million things, doing a bunch of different things at the Score. Maybe I was about to start doing stuff at WWE. Like I felt like I had my hand in so many pots. And one of my girlfriends said to me, she's like, don't you burn out? And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, nope. I actually I love what I do. I feel like I've got so much energy to put into it. I love it. And then I hit that wall where I was like, oh no, bitch, you need to take a nap. You need to shut it down for a minute. And it's a really weird thing to feel where you're like, holy, what is happening to me right now? Burning the candle at both ends. What's that like for you? Because I feel like you're probably maybe in that now.
I think there's two types of burnout. And I think one we talk about a lot and one we don't talk about enough. The first one, and I think it's one that we talk about a lot, is the fatigue, right? You're burning the candle at both ends. You're doing a million things. You're exhausted to the point of like, sometimes you don't even feel like yourself, but you're getting it done. You're drinking a lot of coffee. You're running on adrenaline. And then you crash and you could just sleep for 3 days because you've just, a lot of what we do is mental exhaustion too. Unless you've like performed on some type of level, you might not understand why it would be mentally exhausting, but it's just like you give yourself,
show energy is so different. It's not the same as just like bullshitting with your friends. It's like you're on and you're projecting and blah, blah, blah.
You're like giving yourself, right? Like to me, it's like you're giving so much of yourself and your personality to whatever show you're doing. But so I think there's the basic like fatigue of working a million jobs and being all over the place and traveling and doing all of the things. But I think there's another element to burnout. And this is one that I think I experience more so. The fatigue doesn't bother me necessarily. It just hits me and I try to get my sleep and that's it. But I think because what we do runs so much on adrenaline and what we're talking about in performing and giving all the energy you have to a show or to whatever you're doing, there's a come down from that. Yeah. So when you're performing and performing and performing, and then you wake up one day and you have nothing to do, it's not a fatigue that hits me. It's almost like this is gonna sound so dramatic, but like a sadness.
Yeah. I get that. I get that 100%.
Yeah, I feel a little down. I feel a little like sad, and it doesn't make sense because I'm like, why am I sad? Like I have, everything's great. There's nothing wrong, but I feel an internal like sadness. And I've talked to comedians about this. Emmett, my husband, and I have a friend who's a stand-up comedian, and he talks about having a similar feeling after doing a run of shows, and you're getting that high, that happy hormone, whatever it's called, that releases when you're performing and you're doing something.
Is it dopamine? I'm going to put dopamine out there.
I think that's probably it. You're performing and he's a comedian and he's getting laughs and he's thriving on that. And there's a high that comes with doing that. Mm-hmm. And so when you get off the stage and you go home and you're by yourself, the contrast in feeling so high to feeling just normal feels like depression, even though it's not. Do you know what I mean?
That's why so many performers have drug and alcohol issues because of that.
Because they're trying to stay up here.
Yes, it is a high. It's a high that you get. And there's also, I certainly attach so much of myself to the identity of what my career is that when I'm not doing that actual thing and I'm just like going about my business, I'm like, what am I doing? It can feel a little off trying to like justify like the things you're doing and having like that downtime and like what that swing feels like. Yeah, it is a trip.
Listen, it's a battle sometimes because I think part of that, and I can relate to the identity thing as well. It's also just a productivity thing. I always feel like I should be doing something. And I feel when I'm not, that I'm losing somehow, or I'm taking a step back.
God, how exhausting is that? Yes, I know. It's so true. I get that a lot too. It's funny when I see people I definitely felt like this too, because when you're working with WWE, there's no off season. So there's never that moment of like, okay, well, I'm still doing the thing, but we're all collectively taking a break and then we're going to get back in the thing again. Like I've always been very envious of shows that have hiatuses. I'm like, oh my God, what I would give for a hiatus. That sounds great. Like you still have like, you're not like, I'm sure in a hiatus, maybe it's different. I've not been there, but feeling like you don't have that feeling of taking a step back or like, I don't know, not being productive. It's an on purpose. We're all doing this together. Okay, let's take a breath and then get back to the show.
I think social media has contributed to that too, right? Like feeling, okay, well, I'm not doing my show right now, but I should be posting, or I should be, engaging in some way with an audience. I've gotten better about it. I've really, in the last few years, shout out to my husband, I've really started to care more about my work-life balance. Like I sacrificed a lot. Same. In my 20s. I mean, countless weddings, countless important family and friend things. I've lost friendships over me focusing on work, like legit. Yeah. And so now, I think I do a better job of being, just aware of how much I'm sacrificing. I don't want to get to the end of my life and be, wow, I married this amazing man and I never saw him,
Yeah. How do you guys strike that balance? Let's talk about that. And I want to know like your guys' whole romance story.
Oh gosh. Well, there's a drafted connection, which is wild. Yes. Okay. So, okay. How do we operate? I used to say we were long distance before we got married. Now I say we split time. So in the summertime, when hockey's over, I'll be predominantly in Nova Scotia, and wherever I have to go for work, be it WWE, and I fill in on MLB Network and stuff, I'll just fly in and do it, stay for a few days and then go home. Yeah. During hockey season and the pandemic as a whole, that's a whole other beast. But now that we're back to sort of normal, Emmett, luckily in the winter, can work remotely. So he comes here, he stays with me 2-3 weeks, then he goes home, makes sure our house hasn't like burnt to the ground. He's there, everything's good. And then he'll come back for a couple weeks. So, through the winter and early spring, it's actually pretty easy for us. Yeah. And then, right now we're in a bit of we're both working our asses off right now because his summer business is in its peak. So he's focused on that and I'm here, but, the summer, we always get a lot of time in the summer, which is nice.
Summers in Nova Scotia, you lucky little shit.
I know.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. It's so, I mean, anyone that's never been out there, if you're looking for a place to travel, that's just, I mean, there's cool, like Halifax is just a cool city. It is. Yeah. But then if you get out to Cape Breton and you explore the Cabot Trail and do all that stuff out there, it's just such a pretty place. It's so, I love Nova
my
Scotia.
Grandparents lived out in Pictou. So we would go out to Pictou all the time. Just like the smells, there's like, it's gross, but they had like this like paper, like pulp mill. It smelled rotten, but that smell is like one of those memory triggering things where I'm like, oh my God, we're here.
That's so funny.
I love Halifax. I love the Maritimes. I love
live music, great live music in Halifax. Yeah. It's highly recommend.
Okay, how did you guys meet? Because I feel like you are probably a hard woman to pin down. I don't ever even remember you talking about having a boyfriend before getting married. Yeah. I mean, prior to seeing you with Emmett, I was like, who is this woman? What's happening here? We cannot let this woman go to waste. She is not going to waste. Emmett has stepped in. What's happening?
I had a couple BFs, but they were never good enough to be no, I'm just kidding. They were never good enough to be talked about publicly.
Sorry, guys.
So Emmett and I met through Peter Brown, who was on Gillette Drafted. Yeah. So I'm on Gillette Drafted. There's a guy on Gillette Drafted named Peter Brown. We compete, whatever. We become friendly over the course of taping the show because he wasn't a complete ass to me, like some of the other contestants. I'm just kidding. So we become friendly, and I start working at the Score. Peter's from Vancouver. A year later, he gets on Big Brother Canada, the first ever season of BB Can. So he goes on there, and who is on that show with him? But my husband, Emmett Blois, who I don't know at the time. They become friendly. So in like 2013, maybe, Peter hits me up and is like, I'm going to be in Toronto doing Big Brother stuff. We're all going to a Jays game. Would love to see you. You should come. I'm like, totally, I would love to. So I go to the baseball game. It might've been 2014 actually. Go to the baseball game. Emmett is there with his girlfriend. I'm in a separate relationship with, I know.
Hiss.
Listen, I always thought he was cute, but I was like, his girlfriend was pretty awesome, actually. Jill,
Okay.
she was on the show as well. But so I met them, and it was a big group setting. There was like 8 of us. We all hung out. No, it was nothing, right? Then the following year, Peter hit me up again, and I would hang out with, same thing, a whole crew of Big Brother folk. I would hang out with them. So Emmett and I were acquaintances at best, didn't have each other's number, nothing like that. But, we had the social media follows and whatever. So never really talked at length about anything over the years, just kind of, oh, hey, congrats on the gig, or like a comment on a picture or whatever. And then once I moved to New York, he reached out to me to promote. He had a fitness business, and he was doing this 12 days of fitness challenge. It was like an online social media thing. And so he reaches out to me and is like, I noticed you've been posting a lot of workout posts. You have an audience. Like, would you be into doing this? And I was like, yeah, shoot, sure. Why not? So I start doing that, and we just start talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And so we're in the Instagram DMs, by the way, like just sending each other like video messages, like voice notes, but video form in the Instagram DMs.
The best.
And after weeks of that, he finally asked me for my number, and we got on FaceTime, and we would hang out on FaceTime. And I never thought we would end up together. I was like, this guy's cute, and maybe we'll have a little fling. But he lives in Nova Scotia. I'm living in New Jersey. How would this ever work? And I remember telling some of the makeup girls at NHL Network, because we tell them everything.
Of course. They know all the piping hot tea.
Yeah. Those women know everything. So about everyone. So I was going to Nova Scotia for my grandmother's 91st birthday.
Oh.
And so he was like, listen, we've been talking at length. It's like a month away. We were a month out from me even being there. He was like, we got to hang out if you have time when you come here. And I was like, of course, absolutely. I'd love to hang out. So I remember going into that weekend with the mindset of like, I'm just going to have a time, like he's cool. He's super nice. We get along. Obviously, we're talking for hours a night at this point. And I remember telling them like, nothing's ever going to happen. It's just going to be a fun story. And now we're married.